The issue isn't whether we're going to help defend Israel nearly as much as are we going to help Israel aggress against all their neighbors. And that's what we should get out of the business of doing.
So recently, Dave Smith had a podcast where he clarifies his position on Israel and U.S. policy toward Israel and aid toward Israel. And it sounds like he's going to explain why he thinks it's an improper portrayal to call him anti-Israel. So I'm not sure if I'll completely agree or disagree with him, but I can't wait to hear what he has to say. So let's watch and let's react.
You don't even want to necessarily be anti-Israel. You know, I had some people, I don't think I even ever responded to this, but I said in one tweet recently, or someone called me the anti-Israel guy. And I was like, I'm not even anti-Israel. I'm just pro-America, you know? Now, some people gave me shit on that who were like, you should be anti-Israel. But I don't really see it that way in the same sense that I don't think describing me as anti-American would be at all accurate, even though I've been very critical of the US government and for the exact same things that I'm critical of the Israeli government for. I mean, one of the major things I'm critical of the US government for is for funding and arming Israel, right? I mean, so
yeah, that's the right case. I mean, you can conceive of a country in many different ways. Is it the area between the perimeters of that country? Is it that country's government? Is it the people that compose that country? When you're talking about Israel, you can't just think in terms of the government, unless it's talking about aid to Israel, in which case, yeah, I'm anti-Israel too, and I'm sure Dave is that way too. But what he's saying here is that the default shouldn't be just to think of a country merely as its government in terms of all things. And from that case, you can see where people like Ron Paul was coming from, because in some of his major speeches, he said, you know, many of my colleagues are pro-Israel and other colleagues are pro-Palestinian, but they always forget the third option, and that's to be pro-American. And the America position, the pro-American, America first position, is to get out of it all. Stop with the entangling alliance. And I think that's what Dave's getting at.
Like, I just don't think, like, my starting point is never to be like against the people of any nation, or against like the nation itself. I'm critical of like what governments do, and I'm critical of what the Israeli government is doing to the Palestinians and what the Israeli government is doing to the American people, for that matter. But I don't think any of that should ever be animated, you know, and look, there are people who could make arguments, but I just never, I always find all of these arguments to be unsatisfactory to me. Or, you know, if you want to get into the business of like demonizing the people themselves, you can do it to almost every group of people. And it's just not productive. And I don't think it's right. You know, but if you want to demonize the people of Israel, and you could be like, look at the, you know, look at the lack of protests over what they're doing in Gaza. I mean, there have been some, but not nearly enough. You find man on the street interviews where random Israelis are talking about Arabs. There's no shortage of that. And it's pretty disgusting, the things a lot of them say. But then again, you can also do that to the people in Gaza. And this is what almost everybody who supports the war does. You know, look at them. They're celebrating as this hostage is taking. Look, Hamas won this election. Look at this opinion poll where they supported this. It's like, you could also do that within America, you know?
Yeah, the neocons and supporters of this war will always go to those protests and pick out the ones that are the most like pro-Hamas, like out in the open. And that does exist. But when you come to these protests, first of all, they're not all funded by Soros. And a lot of them are genuine, and certainly not all of the protesters are openly pro-Hamas. A lot of them might just be reflexively angry at killing women and children by the thousands in Gaza. Just maybe. So you see a lot of that. And Dave is right when it comes to non-intervention, because it's not a cultural reason why, you know, so many people talk negatively about the Israeli government. It's the extent to which that's one of the most destructive, if not the most destructive, entangling alliance that the U.S. has been part of. You can say Ukraine, but that's more or less only the last 3 years, where Israel is more or less the last 6 decades or so, or 7 decades. So this is the reason why I think Dave is saying, like, he doesn't have anything against the people there. It's the government. And that's all in all respects. Like, if I have nothing against the Ukrainian people either. In terms of that, I actually have a lot of sympathy for them because they are being used by a criminal regime in Ukraine and a criminal regime in the US for a geopolitical empire building scheme. So that's what I think. So when people ask me if I'm anti-Ukraine, I'd probably have a similar answer to Dave.
I'm old enough, Rob, now that I'm 50, I'm old enough to very vividly remember when every single right winger in this country supported destroying Iraq, and you were some type of homo if you didn't agree with them. I could certainly do it to liberals and left wingers.
Hate to say, I was once a neocon. People that watch this channel might not believe that, but I was drumbeaten for that war in Iraq and called people that opposed it anti-American. They want to spit on our troops when it's just embarrassing now to think about the things I said and did, just knowing what I do now and how much of a lie that was, and just built on a house of cards of lies. So, you see it time and time again. The warmongers always pull from the same bag of tricks, and it's no different now.
In America through COVID. Look how many of them would have, but people are propagandized. People defend their government. People compartmentalize things. I've never made it my thing to attack the people. And so if you're running a campaign that was just animated by hating a foreign country, that's not good. What you want to be animated by is loving your country. And your beef with Israel should be that they're degrading our country. That would be the winning message. And so to your point, if you're like, oh, I'm willing to go with the establishment on anything else, but I'm being I'm being anti-Israel, well, then screw that. You're still with the establishment that's totally fucking over your country. And that I don't think would be successful. Then you're going to get all of the baggage that comes with being critical of Israel and none of the backing, because people are going to be like, oh, you're just a tool of the establishment. But what I think might be the more interesting question is that, imagine a Donald Trump type campaign, but also imagine it actually being America first. Actually being willing to say, yeah, we're not fighting wars on behalf of Israel anymore. Or we're not backing up Israel in their wars. You could I think the best way to do it would be to even do it from a pro-Israel point of view and be pro-Palestinian too. Just be like, I love all these people. We just want them to get along. We're rooting for everyone to have success. You could even do it in a way where you said, we'll defend Israel. You could do it in a way where you went, look, we're not going to let anyone destroy Israel. So if anybody in the region has any plans of that, let's not do that. Now,
and that's not enough for the current neocon establishment. They want greater Israel. They want regime change in Iran. They want occupations in Syria. A lot of them want Israel to take over all the West Bank. I think the government occupies about 60% of it today. But Dave's right. I mean, some people would have a problem with that. I would not want to give any military advantage, any supplies, any resources, dedicate any troops to protecting any other country than my own. But that would even be better than what we're seeing from the status quo. And Dave's right. It's about loving your country, and how can you make your country appealing to others? It's certainly not bombing countries into oblivion overseas in 7 different theaters each administration. It's exporting the great things about America. It's enjoying our culture. It's sharing how great entrepreneurialism is here, or sports, or competitive things that there's no moral problem with. Not bombing people and trying to export the might of America through the bayonet and through the tank and through the bomber jet. That's not the way to do it. So I think I'm mostly with Dave here.
Forget, splitting hairs over whether that's the correct position or the libertarian position, which I repeat myself. But just on the scale of outrages, Rob, you remember last year when Iran sent all of those missiles at Israel, and there was a team of nations that came together to defend Israel. It was mostly America, but there were European countries, and then there were also some of the Sunni sock puppet countries. The Saudis and Jordan and these guys. They all helped Israel defend itself. Of all of the critics of Israel, obviously of us or whoever else, how many people were really outraged by that? It's like, okay, fine. Yes, don't let these missiles fall on people. I don't like any government, intervention, but of all the government interventions, that one's not bad. That's not really the issue. The issue isn't whether we're going to help defend Israel nearly as much as are we going to help Israel aggress against all their neighbors. And that's what we should get out of the business of doing.
Yeah, I think I'm mostly with Dave here, and it depends on the context. If I was asked in a way, am I anti-Israel when it comes to, again, like supplying them with military equipment, manpower, resources, financial aid, foreign aid packages, things like that, I would say, yeah, I am anti-Israel in that respect. If you're talking about the people within Israel, no, I'm not. And actually, I'm a libertarian, and my libertarian heroes happen to be disproportionately Jewish, and some of them have roots in Israel or had roots in Israel. So, this is a complicated topic. I'm mostly with Dave. I'm also with him when it comes to the best way to campaign for this sort of thing. I'm all about populism in a lot of ways. I like some of Trump's rhetoric, believe it or not. Certainly not some of his policy prescriptions that he associated with that rhetoric. But populism in and of itself is a good thing because, let's face it, especially in the last century, the elites have destroyed our way of living, or at least our standard and what it could be. They gave us the surveillance state. They gave us the warfare state, the deep state apparatus where bureaucrats wield more power than our elected officials, the warfare state, where, again, we're bombing people throughout the world in the thousands and millions, the butchers of Syria and Iraq and, all sorts of just insane theaters that the U.S. has been involved in my lifetime. Libya, all over the place. So, yeah, I think I'm mostly with Dave here. The best way to be pro-America is to get out of these entangling alliances, focus on the merits, focus on trade and diplomacy, and the things that used to make America more of a shining city on the hill. Now, has America always gotten it right on everything? Certainly not. And it's been cyclical in some respects, but I sure as heck liked our foreign policy more, in the first half of American history than in the second, that's for sure. Same with the financial system. There were times where there wasn't even a central bank in the early republic for long stretches. So that's what I have to say about it, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below, is Dave right about his position of not being anti-Israel, but just being pro-America? I want to hear what you say about that. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel. And until I catch you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Take it easy. I'll see you in the next one.